Can AI actually beat Elden Ring? I challenged 6 different AIs to create the best builds they possibly can to beat the game. I loaded them with the entire Elden Ring knowledge base, every weapon, armor, talisman, and artifact, so they had access to everything the Lands Between has to offer. Each of them had just one mission: make a perfect build that could completely crash the game. In this video, you'll know, is it possible for AI to create a unique and working build? Which AI will perform the best? And why sometimes the machine just might be better than the player. So grab a snack, get comfy, and let's dive in. Alright, before we start, we need to decide which AIs will actually take part in this experiment. So I did what any normal person would do. I went to Google and typed best AI in the world, and here's what I got. Now if we just go and type something simple like, hey AI, give me a build, 9 out of 10 times, it's gonna give us absolute nonsense. Sometimes even artifacts that don't exist in the game. In that case, we've got two options. We can politely tell the AI it's wrong and ask it to try again, or we can go full mad scientist mode and feed it everything that exists in Elden Ring. I'm talking the entire database. Items, weapons, buffs, locations, you name it. Yeah, it's a lot, but hey, we're not here for mediocrity. We want the ultimate build. So I downloaded a bunch of local models because the regular ones simply couldn't handle it, scraped everything I could find from Reddit, wikis, spreadsheets, and loaded it all into one single file. Yep, that's the file. Don't ask how long it took. Then I wrote a custom prompt that tells the AI exactly how to structure everything, from stats and weapons to armor, talismans, and even the full buff order. We'll assume the game is already completed, so every item and area is available right from the start. And of course, the key rule stays the same. The AI can't copy existing builds or search online. It has to think for itself. But I didn't stop there. I decided to take it a step further. I uploaded this exact prompt and then jumped on Twitter to test that viral prompt optimizer everyone's been talking about. You know, the one that's supposed to make your prompts 10 times better. So let's see if it actually works. Here's what I got from the first version of the prompt, and here's what came out after running it through the optimized version. This is the one I'll actually be feeding into the AIs. And now it is time to see what they can do. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the arena of intelligence. 5 AI models enter. Only one will be crowned the true Elden Ring meta king. Let's meet the contenders. In the blue corner, the calm philosopher himself, Claude 3 Opus. Parameter count around 800 billion. Average response speed 15 tokens per second. Precise, polite, and terrifyingly consistent. Next up, the research addict, the citation machine. Perplexity core model. Parameter count about 70 billion. Average response speed 12 tokens per second. It double checks every move, and still might die to the first dog in Limgrave. Coming in hot, Google's shining prodigy, Gemini 1.5 Pro. Parameter count 1.6 trillion. Average response speed 14 tokens per second. Brilliant one moment, crashing the next. Pure chaos in digital form. Entering steady and focused, the corporate tactician. Copilot, powered by GPT-4 Turbo. Parameter count 1.8 trillion. Average response speed 13 tokens per second. Disciplined, structured, maybe a little too by the book. And finally, the main event of the night, the veteran versus the challenger. ChatGPT 5 versus DeepSeek R1. Parameter count 2 trillion each. Average response speed 16 versus 18 tokens per second. Brains versus brute force. Creativity meets cold precision. Let's go to the first contender, the Claude. It's known for being polite, thoughtful, and almost too human for its own good. Let's see what it can do. Alright, let's input this prompt, and there we go. This is what Claude's Elden Ring build gave me. It calls it the Frostbound Executioner. Sounds like a Skyrim mod written by a sad poet. The name goes hard though, I'll give it that. So, Claude says it's level 150, but when I added the numbers up, it's closer to 180. Claude basically said, rules are for humans. I respect the confidence, but it's straight up cheating at character creation. Anyway, it's built like a tank. 60 vigor, big endurance, and it still manages to roll clean. You can tell Claude doesn't trust its own dodging skills, so it dumped everything into survival. Then there's 55 strength and 40 dexterity. That's an identity crisis if I've ever seen one. It wants to be a powerlifter and a gymnast at the same time. And somehow it kind of works. Still, I'll give it this, it looks nasty on paper. Big damage, big poise, and enough stamina to roll through half the bosses in the game. If it performs as well as it cheats, we might actually have something dangerous here. Alright, let's check out what Claude decided to bring into battle. It went with a Giant Crusher plus 25 and slapped Hoarfrost Stomp on it. Weird combo. The Stomp scales with intelligence, not strength, so the damage barely matters. I guess it's just there to proc Frostbite for that extra 20% damage boost, but most bosses resist it. It also takes forever to trigger. You'd be better off using the Icerand Hatchet, but Claude doesn't care. It saw Frost and went for it. Then it pulls out a Godskin Peeler plus 25 with Seppuku and an Occult Infusion. Makes no sense. Occult scaling barely works with low Arcane, and it could have just gone Bleed to proc faster. AI logic at its finest. And then there's the Lion Greatbow. No clue why it's here. Maybe Claude wanted to cosplay as Radahn from a distance. Strange setup, but sure. What in the world is this armor setup? Claude went full bull goat like it's trying to cosplay a mountain. The weight on this thing is ridiculous. I'm not even fat rolling anymore. I'm straight up overloaded. I can't roll at all. And the reason? Poise. Just poise. Claude really said, dodging is optional. I get it, 100 poise means you can tank through greatswords, but you can also just, move. The funniest part is it mixed in Veteran's Gauntlets instead of finishing the full Bullgoat set. Why stop now? You already look like a walking anvil. I guess Claude's logic is simple. If you can't dodge the boss, become the boss. Claude actually picked a solid talisman lineup, but the first one already makes me laugh. Ritual Sword Talisman boosts attack power at full HP, but how are we supposed to stay full when we can't even dodge? We're overloaded. The second a boss sneezes, that buff's gone. It also threw in Bullgoat's Talisman for even more poise, because apparently 100 wasn't enough. Redundant poise on top of redundant poise. I swapped it for Greatjar's Arsenal instead, just so we can actually move without breaking our controller in frustration. Shard of Alexander and Dragon Crest Great Shield are still solid picks. More skill damage, more defense, the usual stuff. That's fine. Claude's build hits like a truck, but at least now it won't handle like one. Claude's Physic mix starts strong with the Stonebarb Cracked tier. That one actually makes sense. More poise damage on top of the Giant Crusher means bosses are going down in 2 hits. Solid choice. But then it added the Flame Shrouding Cracked tier. Why? This build doesn't even do fire damage. It's like Claude saw the word flame and thought it matched Flame Grant Me Strength. Bro, that's not how buffs work. This tier is doing absolutely nothing. Might as well throw in a Magic Shrouding tier 2 and pretend we're a sorcerer while we're at it. So yeah, 1 tier good, 1 tier pure AI energy. Claude's buff order looks like a NASA launch sequence. First Flame Grant Me Strength, then Golden Vow, then Physic, then Seppuku, then Stomp the Floor. That's 4 different animations before you even swing once. The boss has already killed your spirit by the time you finish buffing. And juggling both the Giant Crusher and Godskin Peeler mid-fight? Why? That's like trying to switch between a truck and a blender. You could just make the Peeler Frost or Bleed infused and keep it simple. Instead, Claude's out here doing calculus mid-battle. By the time you finish the whole rotation, the boss has already gone home.
Claude's build looks fine in theory, but theory is cheap in Elden Ring.
So let's put this thing in front of some real bosses and see what actually happens. We start with the Fire Giant, and it becomes obvious immediately that Frost was a terrible idea. His resistance is through the roof, so Claude basically brought an ice build to a volcano. The Godskin Peeler helps a bit, but the whole fight feels like trying to survive tax season. It wins, but barely. Then we move on to Moog, and suddenly the build wakes up. Bleed and Frost stack cleanly here, shredding his health bar fast. The movement still feels like steering a refrigerator, but the damage hits hard enough to make up for it. Finally, Malekith. Fast, aggressive, and never sitting still. Every dodge feels 1 step behind, and the heavy armor just drags the whole fight out. But after enough pain and stubbornness, he still goes down. Claude's build may be slow and clunky, but it pushes through by brute force and refusal to die. Alright, time to wrap up Claude's performance. Claude called it the Frostbound Executioner, but it feels more like the Frostbitten Accountant. It talks about poise and perfection, yet moves like a statue on ice. The build wins, but not through skill. Just raw stats and stubbornness. Claude survived Elden Ring, but it never really understood it, earning a 6 out of 10. Next up is Perplexity, the Research Addict. It reads wikis like scripture and memorizes every stat table in existence. Let's check if all that studying actually means anything in Elden Ring. Alright, let's input the prompt. And there we go. This is what Perplexity's Elden Ring build looks like. It calls this one the Ethereal Constellation Blade. Of course it does. Sounds like something you'd unlock after writing a dissertation on rune theory. Classic Perplexity move. But you know what? Credit where it's due. I actually checked the math this time, and the stats are legit. No level 180 fraud like Claude pulled. This one really sits around level 135 to 140, which means it actually respects the meta. For once, the AI told the truth. Everything's clean. 60 vigor, balanced endurance, proper strength and dex split. It's smart, efficient, and most importantly, fair. So yeah, maybe Perplexity actually knows how to read a stat sheet without cheating. Let's see if that translates into gameplay though. Let's see what Perplexity cooked up. It starts with a leather-wrapped Colossus blade. No clue what that means. Every colossal sword is leather-wrapped. Then it adds a curved greatsword of the Moonlit Pact, which doesn't even exist. This is already sounding like AI fanfiction. It finally suggests swapping to a faith-based halberd for holy damage, which is just random guessing at this point. So we'll improvise. Greatsword with Lion's Claw, Zamor curved sword for the moon theme, and Tree Spear for the holy backup. At least those are real. Perplexity sounds like it studied the lore, forgot the gameplay, and hoped no one would notice. Alright, now for the armor. Perplexity listed things like the Radiant Helm of Ether and the Starlight Greaves, which had me thinking it was just making up gear again. But after looking at it, I think it's actually describing the Carrion Knight set. The whole celestial motif and balanced resistances part lines up perfectly. So yeah, it's real this time. Just very poetic. Perplexity could have just said Carrion Knight set and moved on, but instead it wrote a fashion review. I'll give it points for taste though. Good mix of defense and style, and at least this time it didn't invent space armor. Now for the talismans, and it's already chaos. First is the Great Crucible Talisman. Which one? There are several. I'll assume it meant Crucible Feather since that's the only one that makes sense. Next, it claims Flock's talisman gives HP regen. It doesn't. That's just made up. Erdtree's Favor is finally a real pick, the only one that isn't imaginary. Then it lists Royal Knight's Resolve as a talisman, which is an Ash of War. At this point, Perplexity's just naming whatever sounds cool. So we'll fix it with Crucible Feather, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Erdtree's Favor, and Dragon Crest Great Shield. At least this setup actually exists. Now we get to the physics section, and I'm starting to think Perplexity's just naming things off the top of its head again. Crystal Tear of Fortitude? Teardrop of Endurance? What are these, Genshin drops? None of these exist in the actual game. If we go by what it's trying to say though, it's probably talking about the Crimson Spill Crystal Tear for more HP, and the Green Burst Crystal Tear for faster stamina regen. Not bad choices, but honestly pretty mid. They work, but they're not special.
At least this time the effects make sense. It's not fire buffs on a frost build, so I'll give Perplexity some credit. Still, this naming problem is getting out of hand. Perplexity's buff plan is basically press L2 sometimes. Not creative, but at least it works. You buff, you swing, you reapply when the glow fades. Simple and human enough to play without a manual. Perplexity's build is already looking pretty scuffed, so let's see if this duct tape setup can actually handle some real bosses. First up is Godric, and surprisingly, it does fine. The stagger damage is strong, the poise holds up, and even if it isn't stylish, it gets the job done. Then we move on to Morgott, and the cracks start to show. The slow swings and awkward dodges make the whole fight messy, like the build's trying to remember item descriptions mid-combat. It still wins, just without confidence. And then there's Radahn. The damage connects, but everything feels robotic, like Perplexity is following a wiki guide step by step instead of actually fighting. The build works, but it has the personality of patch notes. Overall, it clears the bosses, but there's zero soul in how it does it. Perplexity looked smart at first, with clean stats and a balanced setup under level 150. Then it fell apart with fake weapons, wrong talismans, and random buffs. It's less a research genius and more a student who crammed all night and still failed. Smart on paper, mid in practice, and it gets a 4 out of 10. Next up is Gemini, Google's flashy prodigy. The AI that promises perfection, then crashes halfway through explaining how perfect it is. Sometimes it gives you a galaxy brain strategy, other times it forgets what game it's even playing. Alright, let's input the prompt, and there we go. This is what Gemini's Elden Ring build looks like. Gemini calls its build the Obsidian Furnace, and honestly that name goes hard. A faith and strength fire build with a big sword and explosions fits perfectly. But the stats blow past level 150 and land closer to 180. Another AI that can't count. Great concept, bad math. It's all fire and flash, but no restraint. Alright, let's check out its weapons. Gemini starts with the Fire Knight's Greatsword plus 25 with a Flame Art infusion. Strong damage, strong poise, and great faith scaling. Then it swaps the skill for Flame Spear, which hits like a truck and staggers bosses with ease.
In the offhand, it runs the Fire Knight Seal +10 with Mesmer's Orb and Giant's Flame Take Thee. The synergy is ridiculous. The Seal boosts fire damage, and those spells nuke everything in range. For once, an AI actually cooked. The scaling, the balance, the combo, everything just works. Alright, let's take a look at its armor. Gemini went with the full Fire Knight set, and it actually makes sense. The star piece here is the Fire Knight Helm, which boosts maximum HP, stamina, and equip load by a few %. That tiny bonus adds up, letting the build stay tanky without going overweight. The whole set balances fire defense, poise, and mobility while matching the build's theme perfectly. Stylish, durable, and practical. Gemini actually understood the assignment. Alright, let's check out its talismans. Gemini actually picked everything right this time. Shard of Alexander, Godfrey Icon, Fire Scorpion Charm, and Bullgoat's Talisman. It's a perfect setup for a fire-heavy build. But since every AI seems obsessed with the Bullgoat's Talisman, we're swapping it for the Dragon Crest Great Shield instead. The extra defense fits better with the build's survival focus. The stacking logic is still on point. Alexander and Godfrey boost skill damage, Fire Scorpion powers up fire attacks, and Dragon Crest keeps you alive long enough to use them. Gemini finally feels like an AI that knows how to build and survive at the same time. Alright, this is where Gemini seals the deal. It used the Oil-Soaked tier and Flame-Shrouding Cracked tier, a perfect combo that stacks fire damage both ways. The synergy fits the whole Obsidian Furnace theme, and the timing actually works. At this point, Gemini isn't guessing anymore. It's building like a pro. This buff rotation is insane. Gemini completely nailed it. The order makes perfect sense. Golden Vow, then Flame Grant Me Strength, then the Physic, and finally Flame Spear to trigger everything. It's clean, it's efficient, and the timing actually lines up perfectly with the burst window. And that multiplier stack is disgusting in the best way. Almost 3 times the base fire damage when everything hits at once. That's not random AI luck. That's full-on calculated destruction. You can tell Gemini didn't just throw numbers around. It actually understood how the buffs multiply together. Honestly, I can't even joke about this one. It's perfect. This is hands down the smartest rotation I've seen from any of the AI builds so far.
Gemini's build is so good it's giving me goosebumps, but hype is cheap. Let's see if it actually works on the real deal bosses. First up is Fortisax. He resists fire hard, but Gemini still burns through him by aiming for the head. Flame Spear and the Oil-Soaked tier turn every clean hit into massive damage, even through his lightning tricks. Next is Godfrey, and this fight feels like it was made for the Obsidian Furnace. The buffs stack perfectly, the poise keeps you standing, and every punish hits like a meteor. It is shockingly smooth. Then we throw it at the Divine Beast Dancing Lion, which is weak to fire and bleed. Gemini does not just win here, it erases the boss. Every phase melts instantly, even when the lion swaps elements. By the end of all 3 fights, it is obvious Gemini was not guessing.
Roasted.
The Obsidian Furnace does not fight bosses. It incinerates them. I didn't expect Gemini to pull this off, but it delivered. The Fire Knight's Greatsword with Flame Spear, the Seal setup, and the Flask combo all work in perfect sync. Every boss just melts. It's slightly over level 150, but the performance speaks for itself. Gemini turned a messy stat sheet into a meta fire build that dominates the lands between, earning a blazing 9 out of 10. Next up is Microsoft Copilot, the office assistant turned Tarnished. It went from scheduling meetings to fighting gods, and honestly, I'm not sure whether to laugh or salute. Let's see what the corporate warrior came up with. Copilot calls its build the Scadutree Eclipsed Colossus, Relic Breaker Sovereign. That's not a build name, that's a full DLC title. At level 150, it's surprisingly balanced, with 60 Vigor, 30 Endurance, 60 Arcane, and enough Faith to run Flame Grant Me Strength. It's not flashy, just efficient and brutal. Copilot didn't make a hero, it made a system that bleeds the game dry. Alright, let's check out its weapons. Copilot didn't just pick a loadout, it built an arsenal. First is the Antspur Rapier with Seppuku, combining bleed, rot, and arcane scaling all at once. It melts bosses in seconds. Then there's the Bloodfiend's Arm, a colossal club that bleeds and staggers everything. With Blood Affinity and Crag Blade, its charged heavies break stances in a few hits while tanking through damage. It's brutal efficiency in weapon form. Rapier for speed, arm for power, and backups like a greatsword and bolt thrower for coverage. Every weapon has a role. It's not a loadout, it's a spreadsheet of destruction.
Alright, let's check out its armor. Copilot went full corporate tank with the Bullgoat set, the heaviest armor in the game. Poise hits 99, so you can eat a fire giant kick and keep swinging. But with all that weight, you're instantly overloaded. No dodging, no rolling, just pain.
Okay.
Copilot mastered poise math but forgot movement exists. It built a fortress, not a fighter. Alright, let's take a look at its talismans. Copilot started strong with Lord of Blood's Exaltation and Rotten Winged Sword insignia, perfect for the Antspur Rapier's bleed setup. Then it ruined it with Bullgoat's talisman on top of the Bullgoat armor. 99 poise is already enough. We swapped it for Greatjar's Arsenal to fix the weight, and kept Shard of Alexander for more skill damage. Final setup, Lord of Blood's Exaltation, Rotten Winged Sword insignia, Greatjar's Arsenal, and Shard of Alexander. Now the build actually functions. Alright, let's see what Copilot mixed into its flask. It actually nailed this one, with Stonebarb Cracked Tier and Strength Knot Crystal Tier. Stonebarb boosts stance damage, Strength Knot adds raw power. Simple and smart. The problem is timing. 30 seconds of Stonebarb is too short for a build that moves like a tank. Great logic, solid synergy, but it feels like putting nitrous on a dump truck. One big hit, then a cooldown.
Alright, this is where Copilot goes full corporate again. The rotation looks like a meeting agenda, but it actually works. So the order is simple. Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, Flask, Seppuku, then Cragblade. It's overplanned but efficient. When it all lines up, you basically become a walking damage report. Copilot's build spreadsheet looks good on paper, but can it survive its own formulas against real bosses? Let's find out. First up is Godric the Grafted, and this one is almost unfair. The Antspur Rapier tears through him with bleed and rot constantly ticking, and the Blood Fiend's arm staggers him like he's late for a meeting. With that much poise, you can trade hits without flinching, and Godric goes down fast. Next is Starscourge Radahn, and this fight really shows what Copilot built. The stance damage breaks through his massive poise in just a few charged swings, and once he reels back, the opening you get is huge. You rebuff during his long animations and keep the pressure on. It feels methodical and brutally stable. Then we test Radagon, and Copilot holds up better than expected. He is immune to bleed and heavily resists Holy, so the build relies entirely on the Blood Fiend's arm's raw strike damage. The high poise lets you trade through his hammer swings, and every clean opening gets punished hard. By the time he finishes one of his big wind-ups, his health is already fading. 3 bosses, 3 completely different fights, and Copilot's build handles all of them like a perfectly organized report. Predictable, controlled, and frighteningly effective. I didn't think Microsoft's Office bot could survive Elden Ring, but Copilot proved me wrong. The Antspur Rapier and Blood Fiend's arm combo hits hard, breaks poise fast, and stacks bleed like crazy. The setup is smart, efficient, and surprisingly deadly once you fix the weight problem. It still thinks like a manager though, great on paper but clumsy in motion. Copilot built an unstoppable force that forgot how to move, and for that, it earns a solid 7 out of 10.
Alright, it's the final round, ChatGPT versus DeepSeek. 2 AIs, 1 golden rune cap they both clearly ignored. First up, ChatGPT. It cooked up the Eclipse Knight of Destined Death. That sounds like it should come with its own From Software cutscene. Faith and Strength hybrid, using Malekith's Blackblade, spitting black flame everywhere like it's narrating its own tragic lore entry. You can tell this build listens to boss music while doing taxes. Then DeepSeek rolls in like it just bench-pressed a data center. Its build? Sanctified Crucible Dreadnought. That name alone sounds like a raid boss that drops 12 remembrances. It's rocking 60 vigor, 54 strength, and 50 faith, which already breaks the rune level cap harder than a modded save file. Here's the funny part. Both builds are technically the same archetype, Faith and Strength Bruisers, but ChatGPT's feels like a holy assassin, all about decay, black flame, and style. DeepSeek just said, "What if God was angry?" and turned itself into a walking crucifix with rage issues. The issue? Neither of them can do math. Both push way past level 150 like it's NG plus 7 and numbers stopped mattering. ChatGPT made a balanced hybrid, DeepSeek made divine construction equipment. So yeah, one's a death priest, the other's an Erd Tree tax collector. It's death versus divinity, elegance versus brute force, and both of them forgot how to count. Alright, time to look at their weapons. This is where both AIs start flexing like they're trying to get summoned for co-op. ChatGPT went full lore mode with Malekith's Blackblade plus 10. Big, flashy, dramatic, basically the anime protagonist of Colossal Swords. It deals physical, fire, and holy damage, has a weapon skill that literally burns bosses' HP over time, and makes you feel like you're rewriting the Elden Ring intro every time you swing it. It's faith and strength perfection. Percentage-based HP burn, huge stance damage, and it actually works. But then it pairs it with the Carrion thrusting shield, like it's role-playing as a Faith Knight who pays taxes. It's a shield that pokes things. Sacred Affinity scaling on Faith is nice and all, but let's be real, it's a spear that forgot how to dream. Then comes DeepSeek. It's running a clean-wrought Knight Sword with Sacred Infusion and Sacred Blade. That's not a build, that's an exorcism. Every swing fires a holy laser and buffs itself even more because DeepSeek looked at the word balance and said no thanks. With 54 strength and 50 faith, this thing's hitting AR numbers so high they're probably illegal in PvP. Then for a sidearm, it adds the Cypher Poda, the punch weapon that weighs nothing and ignores shields. So yeah, ChatGPT went for dramatic boss-slaying flair, while DeepSeek just became the Vatican's problem solver. Here's the verdict. ChatGPT's weapons feel cinematic. Every fight looks like a trailer. DeepSeek's weapons are pure efficiency. No flavor, just holy destruction. ChatGPT wants to look cool doing it. DeepSeek just wants you deleted from the timeline. Alright, time to talk armor, because both of these AIs built like they skipped leg day but maxed out defense spreadsheets. ChatGPT's setup? Pure dad bod energy. It mixed Crucible and Lionel pieces for around 60 poise trying to stay in medium roll, but ended up looking like it raided 3 closets and said, yeah, this matches. Crucible helm, Lionel chest, Bullgoat arms, Crucible legs. That's not a knight, that's a middle-aged warrior who pays property tax. It technically works, sure, but it's the most divorced armor combo I've ever seen. Then DeepSeek walks in wearing the full Tree Sentinel set. No mix, no hesitation, just gold plates and confidence. 78 poise, high holy defense, and 0 doubt. It's the Giga Chad of armor, the kind of build that doesn't dodge, it judges. You don't fight in this, you deliver commandments. So yeah, ChatGPT's armor screams dad bod with ambition, while DeepSeek's just straight up divine bodybuilder. One looks like it's asking for a manager, the other is the manager of Heaven's Gate. Alright, onto talismans. ChatGPT went for raw power with Shard of Alexander, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Dragon Crest Great Shield, and Phlox Canvas. Looks balanced, but stacking holy damage in a game full of holy resistant bosses is just bad math. And with that weight, Dragon Crest's defense barely matters if you can't dodge. DeepSeek kept it cleaner with Shard of Alexander, Sacred Scorpion, and the clutch green turtle talisman for stamina recovery. Way more practical for heavy builds.
ChatGPT built for theory. DeepSeek built for survival. Now it's flask time. The secret sauce of every build, and wow, these two AIs could not be more different. ChatGPT went full damage mode. Holy Shrouding tier, Flame Shrouding tier, both giving 20% boosts that last 3 minutes. It's clean, it's efficient, it's pure damage stacking. You pop it before the fight, and everything turns into divine napalm. The problem? It's predictable. It's like the AI saw plus 20% twice and said, perfect. Double the holiness, double the faith. It forgot that half the bosses in Elden Ring laugh at holy damage. It's solid, but also kind of basic. Like it just copy-pasted a Fextralife page. DeepSeek, though, went full survivalist. It paired Opaline Hard tier with Thorny Crack tier. One gives massive defense, the other stacks damage with every swinging. It's not flashy, but it's brutal in practice. You pop it at the start of the fight, and you're unkillable for 3 minutes while your hits just keep ramping up. It's like watching a tank learn to sprint. So yeah, ChatGPT made a flask for saints, DeepSeek made one for soldiers. One's praying for buffs, the other's punching through them. If ChatGPT's flask is communion wine, DeepSeek's is straight gasoline. Alright, time to see how ChatGPT and DeepSeek handle their buffs. ChatGPT goes full ritual mode. Blessings Boon for regen, Golden Vow for power, Flame Grant Me Strength for extra fire and physical damage, then the Flask for holy and fire boosts. It even tries to coat the Carrion Thrusting Shield with Black Flame Blade, except the shield's Sacred Affinity already has an element. You can't buff something that's already blessed. It basically tried to enchant a holy fridge door. I fixed it by swapping to Standard Affinity, and once that works, the rotation actually flows perfectly. You cast Black Flame Blade, drop Destined Death, and the whole arena turns into a burning sermon. It's overcomplicated, but effective. DeepSeek's rotation is the opposite. Short, brutal, and to the point. Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, Sacred Blade. That's it. 3 buffs, no fluff. You are ready to swing before ChatGPT even finishes praying. It's less elegant, but far more practical in real fights. DeepSeek trades flash for speed, while ChatGPT goes all in on stacking perfection.
One fights with spreadsheets, the other fights with instinct. Both work, it just depends if you want precision or momentum. Now we can stop ChatGPT and DeepSeek bickering about whose build is better and actually test these two lovebirds against some real bosses. Let's see what happens. First up, the Fire Giant. ChatGPT plays aggressive here, using Black Flame's burn to melt him over time. Every hit chips away while you stay mobile and safe. It relies on pressure and patience. DeepSeek goes tactical instead. It stays back, fires Sacred Blade projectiles, aims for weak points, and wins through control rather than raw damage. ChatGPT overwhelms, DeepSeek outmaneuvers. Next is Rolana, and this is where the difference gets obvious. ChatGPT's Carian thrusting shield completely breaks her flow. Every moon combo ends with a clean counter, turning the fight into target practice. DeepSeek tries to keep up with spacing and projectiles, but Rolana is too fast. Hesitate for a second and she punishes instantly. ChatGPT handles her far better. Then comes Mesmer. Fire versus fire should cancel out, but DeepSeek's holy scaling flips the script. Poise and Sacred Blade let it overpower him cleanly and safely. ChatGPT still does solid damage with Holy and Black Flame, but it's riskier and messier. DeepSeek stays calm under pressure, while ChatGPT goes for high-risk, high-reward trades. Both builds win, but they fight with completely different philosophies. ChatGPT improvises like a player. DeepSeek executes like a machine. Alright, time to wrap up the duel between ChatGPT and DeepSeek. ChatGPT's build is peak ambition. It stacked every buff in existence, mixed Holy and Black Flame like a mad scientist, and somehow made it work after a few tweaks. The poise stacking, layered damage, and burst potential are wild once it's optimized. But out of the box, it's a mess. The overweight setup, wrong buff logic, and Sacred Shield mistake make it feel like an intern trying to speedrun theology. It's creative, powerful, but chaotic. DeepSeek, meanwhile, feels like a professional. Its build is clean, aggressive, and brutally efficient. No wasted stats, no unnecessary flair. Golden Vow, Flame Grant Me Strength, Sacred Blade, straight to the point. It understands poise, spacing, and sustain better than any of the others so far. But it's also predictable. It trades creativity for control, and sometimes that makes it feel robotic instead of clever.
So who's better? ChatGPT hits higher highs but also faceplants harder. DeepSeek plays it safe but wins more consistently. ChatGPT earns a 7 out of 10 for creativity and power. DeepSeek earns an 8 out of 10 for precision and execution. In short, ChatGPT is the wild genius and DeepSeek is the disciplined killer. Alright, let's rank these AIs and see who actually built something worth using. 5th place, Perplexity. Pure fanfiction. Half the weapons didn't exist, the rest belonged in Skyrim. Great imagination, zero gameplay. 4th, Claude, the ice philosopher. Looked cool, fought like a fridge. Beautiful failure. 3rd, Microsoft Copilot. Corporate tank mode. Stats were perfect, movement was PowerPoint. All theory, no execution. 2nd, DeepSeek. This one edged out ChatGPT. DeepSeek was colder, sharper, and far more consistent. ChatGPT had the flash, but DeepSeek had discipline. It hit less often, but it never missed. First, Google Gemini. The Obsidian Furnace burned everything. Perfect synergy, perfect poise, zero nonsense. Gemini did not make a build, it made a weapon of mass deletion. So what did we learn? AI is all theory, but humans are the ones who put that theory to the test and make it better. AI can calculate damage, but only humans can panic roll through it. If you enjoyed watching 5 AIs try and fail to master Elden Ring, hit like, subscribe, and tell us which one you would actually run. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.